When I was in graduate school, I met a Navy SEAL sniper. He and his wife would come over to our house every so often for dinner, and when he would come over, I would ask him about his training as a Navy SEAL. And he told me all kinds of different stories. But the stories that really stuck with me were about Hell Week, a 5.5-day test that every person who wants to become a Navy SEAL has to go through in order to get to the other side and actually say, I'm a Navy SEAL. There are 3 aspects to Hell Week that make it incredibly difficult. The first part is that you're always engaged in some kind of physical activity. Sometimes you're crawling through the sand or you're jumping over barriers. You're carrying boats, you're carrying logs, you're sitting in the surf of the Pacific Ocean on the edge of hypothermia. Now you're doing all that with the second aspect, which is that now you have to do this on very little sleep. You're given 4 hours of sleep over that 5.5-day period. Most people just can't handle that level of sleep deprivation. And then on top of it, you also have the third aspect, which is that the Navy SEALs who run Hell Week, they're trying to mimic your inner voice. They're trying to tell you, you know what, you can leave at any time. You don't have to stay here if you don't want to. As a result, only about 25% of all people who start Hell Week finish it. But for those who do, they feel like they can accomplish anything. They can do anything they set their minds to. And my friend, he explained to me how for those who make it to the other side, not only do they earn your undying respect and loyalty, but they also earn your undying trust. And that's really important because as a SEAL, you're always doing things in teams. The nature of their assignments are often very dangerous, and so they want to ensure that the person who they're with has their back. And Hell Week is really where that trust begins. And my friend, he explained to me something I never really thought about before. In a normal relationship, when you're trying to build trust, it takes place over a series of months or years with little interactions that are kind of like mini tests for trust. Do you show up when you say you're going to show up? If I tell you something personal about myself, do you keep it a secret? If I need help, are you there for me when I reach out to you? And these are things that we all do with all of our relationships, where we start to figure out how much or how little can I trust this person. But when it comes to Hell Week, you're spending 132 hours with all of these individuals over that 5.5 days. And so you're compressing down what would normally take months or years into a very short period of time in some of the most difficult circumstances imaginable. And he told me that the only thing that even comes close to comparing to the bond of trust you have with your fellow SEALs is the bond of trust you would feel with a spouse. That's how deep it goes. So what I want to talk to you about today is, where does trust come from? How do we build trust over time? And when we've lost trust, how do we get it back? Will you join me in the kitchen? Because there's 2 people who are here today who I want to introduce you to, who are going to help us kind of start to really dive into what does it take to trust someone. Will you join me? Well, I want to say welcome to Riley and Cameron. How are you doing, bud?
I'm doing good.
What are we feeding them here?
This is spinach, pear, and apple.
That's a nice combo. Do you make that yourself?
Not this one, but normally we do. Yes.
And how old is Cameron?
He's 7 months old.
7 months.
Yes.
Oh.
We're so excited about that, aren't we? Yeah.
And would you say that you two, like obviously he can't speak yet, but are you two like Velcro to each other pretty much?
Definitely a lot more lately than normal. Yes,
Okay.
Absolutely.
Do you guys have like an unspoken language with each other?
We do.
Do you kind of know what he needs when he needs it?
Yes, within a split second. I feel like it's, he has a look, he has a sound, he looks different, and I feel like I know right away.
Give me an example of something, like I'm interested to know.
So he was playing on the ground last night with my husband, and within a second he stopped laughing. He just got quiet and looked at me. And I go, "Do you want to sit up?" Because he was laying down on his back. So I immediately pulled him up, sat him up, and he was happy as a clam, laughing away.
Wow.
Right?
Well, so what's interesting about that is that you kind of having that intuitive sense of his needs, what you're doing with that, and I know you're trying to be a good mom just by being there for him, but you're building a really deep foundation of trust for him because you don't realize how they cannot survive without you. They literally, they need you every second of the day, really. And to be there for him, what you're doing is actually really remarkable because there's like a cause and effect that he's going to learn about with this, which is that if he gets the foundation where you're there for him like immediately, right?
Right.
He feels like, oh, my mom, he can't think it right now with the words, but in his mind, or he feels like, oh, mom's there for me. Like he feels it, right? And that feeling, that lays a foundation so that he can go on and he can like learn because he's like, oh, I'm safe. Learning's good for me now.
Being able to explore that too. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of safety in that. Your mom is a really good mom. Though, there are some people, some kids who don't get that. They're not cared for in the way that you're caring for him. And there's an interesting whole domino effect of consequences with that. And like the cause and effect thing that we were just talking about, where like he may cry and then you come immediately. Mm-hmm. He learns very early, oh, if I do this, this happens, right?
True.
Whereas a child who cries, nobody comes, they actually get that mixed up. And so it leads to impulsivity later on in life. It can lead to not understanding consequences. And what's interesting, the most fascinating thing and the tough thing about it is that a lot of kids like that, they end up actually befriending people who are untrustworthy later in life because they don't see those connections. And it's not always, but it does happen that way sometimes. So here's my question to you.
Okay.
Are you a trusting person?
I would hope so. Yes, I am. Yeah, severely. I think some people would say to a fault sometimes.
So I'm in the same place with that. Like I totally trust Wade. I'd assume nobody is ever going to lie to me.
Correct.
And so I think that, I give my mom credit, that she was probably there for me and that like built that up. Over time. Now you told me it was apples.
He does love apples.
And I went all out and I was like, you know what? I think I want to try to make for you a little bit of applesauce.
Do you want to try some, Cam?
Do you want to see? All right, you ready to give it a try? It's not your normal. What do you think? I think he's willing to trust me because he trusts you. What do you think? What do you think?
Is that good?
That's interesting. Do
It's
you
a
want
good
to try a little
sign.
more?
Oh, yeah. I think you did good. I think you did good.
I'll give you just one more little taste of that. This is my first time making applesauce from scratch, so I just want you to know that I wouldn't blame you if you didn't like it very much.
Oh, you want food all over your face, don't you?
This isn't the only time that you build trust. You're laying that foundation, but the other thing that happens is, as you know, later on in life, we meet people and we realize that actually not everybody has our best interests at heart, that the trust doesn't always go the right way. And so you're doing a great job starting him here, but then later there's going to be other things that he's going to encounter, other people he'll encounter, and that's going to influence the way he thinks about trust, which is what we're going to talk about when we go downstairs. So I want to thank you for being here with me. Thanks for taking the time to bring Cameron. You are wonderful. I hope that you enjoy raising him. He's just a wonderful little boy.
Thank you so much for having us.
Even if your parents did a remarkable job raising you and giving you a deep sense of trust, the fact is that our sense of trust also develops around our relationships that we have as we move into adolescence and adulthood. So trust is really built on two things. It's built on truth and follow through. So if I tell you that I'm going to come mow your lawn, and then I show up, I follow through, and I do it, that tells you something very important about my character, which is that I try to follow my words with actions. And the more often I follow my words with actions, that comes to help you to understand, to anticipate how I'm going to act. And in a sense, that's really what trust is all about. It's about anticipation. I can anticipate their behavior. I can anticipate what I think they're going to do. But what happens if your behavior is unpredictable? What happens if I can't tell what you're going to do, if we don't know what you're going to be like from moment to moment? We can't anticipate your behavior. Well, that can erode trust over time. The problem is that nobody's perfectly consistent all the time. I know that for me, when I become very tired, I tend to have lapses where I don't show up when I said I was going to. I can say hurtful things. I can forget to do certain things. That's problematic. I mean, that erodes trust when I do those things. So the question then becomes, how is the person who's dealing with that inconsistency, how are they going to function around that? And they really only have two options. For some people who have a lot of trust, if you end up having a breach, it actually doesn't collapse the entire building because they understand we all make mistakes and we all need forgiveness in our lives. But when it comes to low trust individuals, well, one breach, it can collapse the entire building. And so I really think that this is the biggest difference between high trust and low trust individuals, is often forgiveness. And I just want to be clear, forgiveness is when you're willing to let go of the mistake, you're willing to let go of the anger, and I think it's one of the most important tools we have when we're trying to repair trust. And so the question that I would pose to you is, what kind of person are you? Are you a person who trusts and forgives easily? Or are you the kind of person who is skeptical and unwilling to offer forgiveness when someone breaches your trust? Everybody who I know who has trust issues in their life, they can usually point to one or a series of relationships where it taught them that they shouldn't trust. I have a good friend who's in her 70s, and she often says to me, "Alex, I've been burned by so many people, so many times, that the only person I can really trust is me." And you know what? I get it. Like, if you've been burned a lot, like, that makes sense that you would have issues trusting. But what I think happens is people take the pain that happens in their lives and they hold on to it, and it's always kind of in the back of their mind, and they want to have it there so that they can remember, I don't ever want to feel this way ever again. And unfortunately, when we hold on to it for too long, it can actually prevent us from growing the way that we want to. I think people who struggle with trust, they think they're doing themselves a favor by questioning everyone's intentions and thinking the worst of everyone, because they think, well, you know, if you make it through all of those barriers, then clearly you are the most trustworthy person. When in reality, they're just pushing away the very people they want in their lives. And in a sense, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because when you treat people with suspicion, you never really have those bonds of trust that are gonna make those kind of relationships that you need. And so for a lot of people in that situation, I feel like they end up cloistering themselves away to such a degree that they never really get to enjoy the full range of human experience. And this is why it's so important that you're willing to take the risk. If you've been burned, I totally understand not wanting to repeat that. But taking a risk, finding the right kind of people to build trust over time, like my Navy SEAL friend said, that it's lots of little interactions over time that build up that trust. But the magic ingredient is forgiveness. And not just forgiveness for the friends who you're trying to bring in if they make mistakes, not just for them, but for you too, because you're going to make mistakes. You know, so often I feel like people who struggle with trust, they do so because they feel like they have to be perfect to be worthy of trust. And that's simply not true. And I think forgiveness gives us the ability to know that, you know what, we can make mistakes too, and that's okay. So don't allow what someone else did to you to define the rest of your life. If somebody hurt you, if somebody burned your trust, please don't live the rest of your life skeptical because of that one person. Don't allow them to define how you live your life. The most important thing you can do is rise above that and not repeat that behavior, because you deserve to have people in your life who you trust. You deserve to have the opportunity to enjoy friendships, and you deserve to be the kind of person who knows that the people around them have their best interests at heart. And so no matter who you are, no matter where you've been, no matter how you feel, please know that you are loved, you are seen, and you are cared for, if by no one else, by me. My name is Alex Lang, and until next time.